Lindsay came home after her shift to an empty, dreary apartment. She hastily grabbed a snack, took a shower, and sat in front of the TV, stretching her legs, relieved to finally relax. Her favorite show was starting. The main character, despite all her hardships, had met her prince. They fell in love. Ahead lay a happy, carefree future. Lindsay sighed and thought to herself, I wish I were that lucky. Instead, it's just one disappointment after another. My husband turned out to be a jerk. At work, they treat me like garbage. No kids, no personal life. It's a dead end. And I'm already in my 30s. Lindsay had been working as a waitress in a cafe for many years. She handled her responsibilities well, seemed to manage everything, and often received generous tips. But she never saw those tips or bonuses. It was all because the owner was stingy and unpleasant. He only knew how to nitpick at his employees and scold them for the slightest mistakes. He took almost all the tips for himself, leaving the waitresses with only scraps. Lindsay wanted to quit many times in anger, but jobs were scarce in their town, and she feared she wouldn't find anything better and would end up without a piece of bread. After all, she didn't have an education. So she endured it all. Lindsay had also gotten married without much love, more because it was expected. She met her future husband, of course, at the cafe where she worked. He often came in for coffee and snacks. He stared at her, complimented her, left generous tips, and asked for her phone number. Eventually, Lindsay couldn't resist. She enjoyed the attention, got to know him better, and eventually became involved with him. Stan painted a beautiful picture. He talked about working in a reputable company, having his own car, a 2-bedroom apartment, and he was physically attractive. Tall, well-built. Brunette. He gave her favorite gladioli, took her out to nature, grilled amazing kebabs, and spoke of love. It was clear that he was crazy about her. It wasn't surprising, as she was attractive. She had naturally beautiful thick wheat-colored locks down to her shoulders and big, slightly sad gray eyes. Her figure was also enviable. They were happy together. Lindsay decided it was time to get married, especially since the groom insisted on it. And after the wedding, it turned out exactly like in the Cinderella story. The woman worked for 3, took on extra shifts and odd jobs, got tired, like a horse. And her husband moved into her apartment. It turned out he was just a courier, the car was company-owned, and he rented his apartment. Since his schedule was quite flexible, he started drinking with friends often, and as the years went by, he began carousing more. He came home very drunk, very late. In response to Lindsay's reproaches, he always managed to make her feel guilty. Saying she was always at work, they rarely saw each other, and he, supposedly, was bored. He became so brazen that he even brought women straight to their apartment. The scoundrel feared nothing. Neighbors often tried to hint at this, but Lindsay couldn't believe it, just waved it off. She thought they were jealous because they had a normal family. So they gossiped behind her back. One day Lindsay found a woman's comb in the bathroom. She made a scene, but the scoundrel wriggled out, saying it was his cousin who came to visit. He even accused his wife of not having children, claiming she was incapable of giving birth, and therefore not a woman at all. A vessel without content. But I need an heir, the scoundrel often repeated. You, dear, wouldn't reproach me with all moral sins, but rejoice that I live with you, childless, for so many years. So endure my weaknesses. After all, I am a man after all. Lindsay was terribly offended. She often worried and cried. Indeed, no matter how hard they tried, pregnancy did not happen, although physically Lindsay was healthy. But she had neither time nor money for visits to doctors and checkups. So they lived. They argued fiercely from time to time, like a cat and a dog under one roof. Rather, out of habit. There was no warmth between them, no soul connection. They were strangers to each other. And over the years, this alienation turned into an abyss. But one day something terrible happened, putting an end to their marriage in an instant. Lindsay came home earlier than usual. She was poisoned with something. She barely made it home. She felt very sick. Her stomach was cramping, her head was spinning. In the hallway, she smelled the sickly sweet scent of women's perfume. The woman tiptoed to the bedroom and quietly opened the door. Lindsay was so shocked that she stood and watched her own husband with some unfamiliar girl for 10 minutes. And then a wave of anger and hatred engulfed Lindsay. In anger, she scolded both, kicking them out by the neck, and decisively divorced her husband, even though he tried repeatedly to reconcile. But apparently something broke in her, and she could no longer stand Stan. He became repulsive to her. So she started living alone, completely disillusioned with men. Her periodically drunken husband annoyed her, banging on the door and demanding money, but Lindsay was adamant, not opening the door to the scoundrel. And now, when the intercom rang, she thought irritably to herself, "Well, here we go. Now Stan will shout and make a scene that I ruined his life, as if it's me who drinks and lives a wild life. I have no strength left. When will he leave me alone?" But to her surprise, a thin child's voice rang out. "Buy a postcard, please. I made it myself. It's not expensive, only 100 rubles. If you don't have money, you can at least give me some bread. I'm really hungry." Something in Lindsay's soul jolted, flipped, and she quickly threw some food into a bag, cookies, apples, and grabbed the last 100 from her wallet, then dashed out onto the street. On the porch of the entrance stood a skinny boy about 7 years old. He smiled at her sheepishly and timidly handed her a postcard. "Hello, Auntie, take this. I tried very hard. Maybe give it to someone as a gift. My name is Mitch." The boy was dressed very poorly. His sweater was too small, the sleeves barely reached his elbows, worn-out trousers with patches, and old sneakers patched up a dozen times. But he was still very cute. Open gaze, dimples on his cheeks, and light curly hair that desperately needed a trim. The woman handed him the bag with food and the money. "I'm Lindsay, you can just call me Lindsay. Here's something for you to eat. Oh, it's nicely done. Did you cut out the applique yourself?" "Yes, Aunt Lindsay, all by myself, without anyone's help." "So carefully. Mitch, you're a big boy." The boy sniffed and joyfully shouted to her, "Thank you," then dashed away. And Lindsay went back to her apartment, holding the souvenir she had bought in her hands. At home, she sat back in her chair and started examining the drawing, and she just gasped at what she saw. The postcard depicted a beautiful but very sad prince. He sat on a strange throne, more like a wheelchair, and a hideous witch hovered above him. She stretched out long hands, more like bird claws, and her face was twisted with hatred. The sky was cloudy, and the boy even managed to draw lightning. It seemed that something terrible was about to happen. It was clear that the child depicted some situation from real life in the form of a fairy tale. And judging by how meticulously and wonderfully the prince was depicted, he was clearly dear and close to the boy. While the witch was shaded with such pressure from the pencil that she almost pierced the cardboard. But the boy clearly had a talent for drawing. Very few children his age can depict people so accurately and proportionally and convey emotions in the drawing. The woman was horrified. Poor boy, something bad happened to him, and he can't even share it with anyone. She needed to find out everything tomorrow and try to help him. But where to find this Mitch? That was the question. The next day, Lindsay had a day off, and she set out to find the boy. She searched all the nearby yards and alleys, even went down to the heat pipes and rummaged through dumpsters where the local homeless lived. But it was all to no avail. The boy was nowhere to be seen. Lindsay was already desperate when she was unexpectedly helped by her neighbor from the stairwell, Gwen. She was the one who suggested where to look for Mitch. "I know this kid. He's been running around the entrances for 6 months, selling his drawings. Many buy them out of pity and then immediately throw them away. Who needs a scribble of a 7-year-old? I don't know where he lives, but the kid is definitely not homeless. I often see him in the park, on a bench by the pond. He feeds pigeons there with bread. But why do you need him?" Lindsay didn't answer anything, thanked her neighbor, and went to the park. She didn't even know why she was looking for the boy, she just wanted to talk to him. And indeed, Mitch was there. He was sitting on that very bench, sadly hanging his head, lost in thought. Lindsay cautiously approached him and spoke softly. "Hi, Mitch. Do you remember me? I'm Lindsay, we met yesterday. Can I sit down? I want to ask you something, if you don't mind." The boy shrugged and moved over, making room for her next to him. "Why not? I'm bored alone, and I don't want to go home. What did you want to know? Did you like my postcard?" Lindsay smiled. "You're very talented, Mitch, you draw well. That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. You didn't just draw that fairy tale, did you? That sad prince on the throne, he's your dad, right? And that evil witch, she wants to hurt him. Did I understand correctly? Maybe you'll share. Perhaps I can help you." The boy immediately shrank, grew thinner, and became very sad. "You understood everything correctly. You're the first person to ask me about it. The prince is my dad, Marcus. He used to be so cheerful. Strong, brave." Lindsay was shocked by what she heard. She couldn't believe it. She clarified everything. "Oh my God, what a nightmare. And do you and your dad have no one else? No grandparents, other relatives?" Mitch shook his head. "No, it's just us. Everyone else passed away a long time ago. So there's no one to help us." The woman couldn't contain her emotions and said to the boy, "You know, Mitch, why don't we go to my place? I'll feed you lunch and you can stay with me for a while. Then I'll take you home. And I'll try to talk to your nasty stepmother, maybe I can appeal to her conscience." The boy was thrilled and immediately agreed. He joyfully took Lindsay's hand and went with her. He eagerly and with appetite ate cabbage soup and meat, and then they drank tea with sweets. The boy ate his fill and even dozed off a little. It was getting dark outside, and Lindsay took him home. The family lived nearby, just a block away. As soon as they entered the apartment, they were hit by the smell of cigarettes, staleness, and a sick person. The place was untidy and dusty. The ashtray was overflowing with cigarette butts with traces of lipstick. Lindsay cautiously looked into the fridge. There was almost nothing there. A couple of eggs and a dried piece of sausage. Mitch led her to the bedroom where his father was. He was sitting in a wheelchair, looking out the window sadly, like a prisoner longing for freedom. When he turned around, Lindsay suddenly shuddered. He looked so tortured and exhausted, his eyes were sunken, as were his cheeks. He hadn't shaved in a long time, and there was such despair and sorrow in his eyes. Lindsay reached out to him. "Good evening, I'm Lindsay. I met your son Mitch yesterday. He sold me a beautiful postcard. Your son is very talented. He told me that you're sick. So I thought, maybe I can help you. What do the doctors say? The man answered quietly. Hello, Lindsay. Nice to meet you, I'm Marcus. Mitch, please put the kettle on. We have guests, after all. The boy ran to the kitchen, and Marcus continued. Thank you for coming. You're probably the first person to respond to someone else's misfortune. I'm a professional climber by trade. We were installing windows in new buildings. That's when I fell from a height. I don't know how it happened. I've been working for so many years, always double-checking and following safety procedures. And then this happened. It was 6 months ago. I injured my spine and spinal cord. The doctors said there were chances, but we needed a huge amount of money for the surgery. And only one person in our country does it, Professor Smith. It was important to do it within the first 6 months, but Chloe didn't even want to hear about it. She dismissed me. She's my wife. We've been married for a long time. She didn't want to turn anywhere else and spend her money on me. She thinks I'm a useless vegetable. She bullies Mitch. He's been telling me about it for a long time. And I, fool that I am, didn't believe it. I thought Chloe genuinely loved me. Turns out, she only loved my money and my registration. And now, when I'm incapacitated, she's tormenting me however she wants. She knows I can't do anything. It's sickening. I would have probably hanged myself long ago. Or drunk myself to death with pills. I don't want to live at all, and there's no reason to, if it weren't for my son. I feel sorry for him, and he's already lost his mother. And if he loses me too? And I'm sorry, Lindsay, for telling you all this, but I don't have anyone else to talk to. I'm sitting here in this bedroom like a bird in a cage. Chloe hasn't even taken me out for a walk once. There's no ramp, and she doesn't want to ask the neighbors to help carry me out. Tears welled up in Lindsay's eyes as she took Marcus's hand. She felt cold and lifeless. The woman started to encourage him. Listen, Marcus, your situation is undoubtedly difficult, no denying that. I'm just shocked, but we can't give up. We have to fight. I'll do my best to help you. Give me copies of your hospital records. Diagnoses. I'll reach out to charities, the administration, get as much attention to your situation as possible. You need to be examined and treated. If there's even the slightest chance, we have to take it. Here, take some money. I got paid yesterday. This is for you and Mitch. Unfortunately, it's all I have. Before Marcus could thank this wonderful and caring woman, the exit door slammed shut, and Chloe returned from the store. Hearing a stranger's voice in her husband's bedroom, she rushed in like a fury, not even bothering to take off her shoes. Well, hello, and who might you be? Finally, someone from social services? Chloe taunted. Come on, what's with the idle talk? Hurry up and clean faster. Lindsay looked at this unkempt and unpleasant person with disgust before replying, Good afternoon, I'm Lindsay. No, I'm not from social services. Just a friend of your son's. I dropped by for a visit. I can see you're having a tough time. The boy is hungry, there's hardly anything in your fridge. Is it really that hard to cook some soup? This is just unacceptable. If you want, I can help with cleaning or cooking, it's not a problem for me. Suddenly, Chloe erupted in anger. Who are you, chicken, to lecture me about life? I'm already struggling with this cripple. And now this boy on top of it. He's not my son, clear? And anyway, what's it to you how we live? Stop flapping your gums, or I'll teach you to keep your tongue behind your teeth. Get out of here, immediately. Mother Teresa, my foot. Startled, Lindsay hurriedly left, whispering to Mitch quietly, I'll be back the day after tomorrow. Marcus could only wave goodbye timidly as he watched her leave with a sad look. This beautiful and kind fairy had made an indelible impression on him. Compared to her, Chloe's rude behavior seemed laughable and terrible. He even felt embarrassed and ashamed of her disgraceful conduct. Lindsay was shocked by what she saw. Poor Mitch and Marcus. They were trapped. And that awful Chloe did whatever she pleased. She didn't care at all about Marcus's health, or the boy, or his future. Something had to be done. This couldn't be left as it was. If not her, then who? After working 2 shifts, when her weekend finally came, she immediately sprang into action. She went to the administration, and at least Marcus was put on the waiting list for surgery and examination. It was understood that they might have to wait not just 1 or 2 months, but at least there was some chance. Then she handed all of Marcus's documents over to the charity fund Drop of Kindness. They promised to organize fundraising for Marcus's treatment and surgery. But Lindsay didn't stop there. She personally posted a plea for help on all social media platforms on the internet and persuaded the director of the local TV channel to air a segment with photos and details, asking for help for the disabled man. She feared Chloe's wrath and the possibility of her pocketing the donated money meant for the surgery. Marcus would be left with nothing again. So, secretly consulting with him through Mitch, they decided that Lindsay would provide her own phone number and bank card details everywhere. It would be safer that way. With Lindsay's presence in their home, Marcus found a glimmer of hope, albeit small. He no longer stared into space for hours. Instead, whenever Chloe wasn't around, he spent his time on the computer. He responded to questions from sympathetic people on the internet, explaining his illness and what had happened to him. Lindsay made him believe that everything could be changed, that there was no need to despair, and that there were many kind and compassionate people in the world. They would definitely be able to raise enough money for his treatment and surgery. Chloe, accidentally seeing the segment about Marcus on television, became furious. She raged and threw things. None of this was part of her plans. She didn't need Marcus to recover. On the contrary, she planned to get rid of the weak invalid and his offspring as soon as possible. And finally, live like a queen in their own apartment. But it was too late. Marcus was inundated with calls and letters. And the quarrelsome woman couldn't do anything about it. Things had really taken off, and the fundraising was quickly gaining momentum. People were genuinely touched by Marcus's and little Mitch's story, and they were willing to donate whatever they could for his treatment. After all, it wasn't a joke. The poor child had lost his mother, and now his father was left as a disabled person. When a substantial amount had accumulated in the account, Lindsay decided to find the renowned Professor Smith in the capital and persuade him to at least examine Marcus. She found his contacts and tried to reach out to him, but to no avail. The queues to see him were simply astronomical. People were booking appointments a month in advance, and just getting a consultation with him was nearly impossible. After much thought, Lindsay made a decision. Seizing the moment when Chloe wasn't at home, she came to consult with Marcus. You know what I'm thinking? What if Mitch and I go to see this famous professor together? We'll just camp out by his building and beg him to see you. Will he really refuse a child? I can't seem to talk to him. They keep saying, make a general appointment. But if we do that, we'll have to wait at least 3 months just for a consultation. And it's already been 6 months since the injury, and time is working against us. Are you okay if Marcus and I go this weekend? Who knows, maybe we'll get lucky. Marcus even shed tears and took Lindsay's hand. A spark of understanding passed between them. Lindsay, please, answer me honestly, why do you and Mitch need us? Why are you bothering with us? He asked. Lindsay looked into his deep green eyes and replied, You know, Marcus, before Mitch came into my life, I was just a regular 30-year-old divorcee. I used to come home from work to an empty apartment and cry often, feeling like my life hadn't amounted to much. But when I learned about you, I realized what a selfish person I had been. I have everything, a home, a job, my health. I used to complain about how tough my life was. But now that we've grown so close, I simply can't imagine life without Mitch. He's become a part of me. And you're not a stranger to me either. There's something about us that's similar, don't you think? So, in my life, it made sense to help two good people. That's all. As for Chloe, it's not my place to decide how she should live. Touched, Marcus cried, Thank you so much. I've never seen such kindness in my life. I feel ashamed that I can't thank you properly yet. On the weekend, Lindsay and Mitch went to the Capitol to find the professor. It was a real adventure for the little boy, as he had never traveled by train before. He sat proudly on the upper berth, sipping delicious tea and eating pastries. They waited all day for Smith outside his house, tired and cold. Lindsay regretted involving the child in this adventure. Who knows if Smith would even talk to them and when they'd return home. To her surprise, Mitch didn't complain, didn't ask for anything, patiently sitting and waiting, just like a grown man. As dusk fell, Smith finally arrived at the building and stepped out of his expensive car. Lindsay tightly held Mitch's hand as they approached him directly. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak. Good evening, Adam. Can we talk to you, please? We've come such a long way with Mitch just to have a conversation. Please don't turn us away. I understand you see hundreds, thousands like us, but our case is special. The elderly man, surprised, looked at the tired but attractive gray-eyed beauty and the frightened little boy. Something stirred in his heart. He couldn't refuse them and sat down next to them on the bench. Lindsay passionately told Marcus and Mitch's story, and, when she finished, she asked, So, will you see him? It's been 6 months already, and I'm afraid of being too late. That's why it makes no sense to schedule an appointment, as it would be too late, and Mitch would be left without a father, an orphan. The boy, Mitch, looked up at the professor with his tear-filled eyes and asked quietly, in a very adult manner, Please, save my dad. I'll be lost without him. Stepmother will drive us away. The man sighed and replied, What am I to do with you? My schedule is planned to the minute, for months ahead, but since it's such a case, bring the patient for a consultation on Thursday, and we'll see from there. I promise to do what I can to help. I'll arrange for you to be seen without waiting. All the best. When the professor left, Mitch suddenly clung to Lindsay, hugged her tightly, and burst into tears. Thank you. Dad will be saved now. You won't leave us, will you? He asked. Lindsay stroked his curly hair and sincerely replied, I won't abandon you, Mitch, I promise. You've become like a son to me, I swear. So, darling, shall we head to the station and go home now? Are you tired, dear? We'll grab something to eat and rest on the train. Without hesitation, Lindsay spent all her savings to arrange transportation for Marcus to the Capitol for examination and consultation. Chloe was screaming so loudly that it could be heard throughout the neighborhood. What have you done? Who gave you the right to meddle in our family? I'm against it. What's the point of dragging an invalid across the country? It's useless, Chloe exclaimed. But then Marcus intervened, speaking sternly for the first time since his tragedy. Chloe, shut your mouth. I've long realized that you couldn't care less about me and Mitch. This man sincerely helps us. Don't interfere. And if you don't like something, leave right now. Why are you burying me alive? The quarrelsome woman realized she had gone too far. Now wasn't the time to argue, as there was a risk of losing the apartment. She quickly backed down and changed her tone, hoping deep down that Marcus couldn't be helped and her plan would work. Lindsay took time off work and went with Mitch. It was important for her to hear what the professor would say and support the man if necessary. Mitch flatly refused to stay with Chloe and also went with his father. The professor examined the X-rays, CT scans, held a consultation, and then delivered his verdict to Marcus and Lindsay, who anxiously awaited it in the reception area. The doctor said, "Lindsay, it's complicated. Time has indeed been wasted, but there's a chance. If we perform the surgery right now, without delay, Marcus could walk again. The chance of success is high, but not everything depends on me. There are no budget spots or quotas, but the cost of the surgery. What's this? Take a look." Lindsay looked at the amount and gasped. Marcus's account had only half of it. She frantically thought about what to do. They had to agree. There wouldn't be another chance like this. "It took me a lot of effort to convince the professor," she confidently replied. "We agree. I'll transfer half of the amount today, and I'll send the rest by the end of this week. Is it acceptable? Don't worry, I won't let you down. We can't wait, Marcus's life is at stake. He's only 30, and I can't accept that he'll be confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life." When the professor left, Marcus asked in astonishment, "Lindsay, what are you doing? We don't have that kind of money. Where will we get it from? We should have declined and saved up the missing amount, and then—" The woman fervently replied, "And then what? By then, you wouldn't be able to stand up. Smith said to lie down and fear nothing. I'll find the money, no matter what it takes. I'll mortgage the apartment, take out a loan, figure something out. Your life is more important. Thank you. I owe you an immeasurable debt. If I survive, I'll work and repay every penny. Just take care of Mitch, please, so that Chloe doesn't harm him, okay?" "I worry about him," Marcus said anxiously. Lindsay waved her hands. "We'll deal with it later. Let's go get registered. Time is precious. Think about what you have to do. You must recover. For our son and for me. It's important to me, so remember." They hugged tightly before parting, and Lindsay and Mitch went home. Marcus stayed in the hospital. Lindsay remained silent throughout the journey, feverishly trying to figure out where to get the remaining amount in a few days. Her thoughts raced. Her mind was in complete chaos. Mitch's voice broke her contemplation the next day. "Lindsay, can I stay with you until Dad returns? I don't want to go to Chloe, she's mean." The woman hugged the boy and held him close. "I never intended to take you to her, my dear. You'll stay with me for now. Don't worry, I'll be happier this way. Let your father deal with Chloe later. It's not my concern." The next day, after her shift, the woman rushed to the bank hoping they would approve her loan. But no matter how much she pleaded or explained the situation, she was denied. Her salary was too small, and the loan amount was too large. The woman came home completely shattered and disheartened. Mitch greeted her. The boy wanted to do something nice and fry potatoes. It turned out to be very tasty. Lindsay ate with appetite and praised the boy. "You're such a good boy. But things aren't going well for me. I urgently need to get money for your dad, but so far, it's been unsuccessful." "Don't worry, Mitch, we'll make it through. The main thing is for your father to recover." Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Surprised, Lindsay wasn't expecting anyone and went to open the door. Standing on the doorstep were an elderly couple, sharply dressed and evidently well off. The man greeted her. "Good day, are you Lindsay Grimes? My name is Clark, and this is my wife Monica. We were given your address by a charity foundation. We're looking for Marcus. Is he here by any chance? We were told that you're raising money for surgery. We initially went to the address where he lives, but we were met unfriendly by some unpleasant woman. She said she didn't know where Marcus was or when he'd return. So, we decided to stop by here." Lindsay ushered the guests into the room and honestly and openly told them everything. About the professor, about Chloe, and about the missing amount. Then she asked, "But why do you need Marcus? Are you acquaintances of his?" Mitch said they have no relatives. I asked, "Or do you just want to help? It would be very helpful, as we urgently need money now. Every penny counts." The man sighed and began to explain everything in detail, trying not to miss anything. "The thing is, Marcus is our biological son, that's why we're looking for him. I'll try to explain everything, although it's such a mess that we barely figured it out ourselves. Monica gave birth to our son 30 years ago in a maternity ward at the same time as another woman. She also gave birth to a boy. But due to a blackout caused by bad weather, all the transformers blew, the power went out, and there was chaos and confusion. As a result, our children were mixed up. My wife and I are dark-skinned, tall, and they gave us a redhead boy. We couldn't understand who this Tom was all the time. He was completely unlike us, neither in appearance nor in character. He grew up unruly, uncontrollable, didn't want to study at all. He changed schools 3 times because of his terrible behavior. Things got worse. He was expelled from college for skipping classes. He went off the rails and got involved with shady characters. He often played in casinos for money, squandered fortunes we worked so hard to earn. And a year ago, he was coming home from a nightclub. Drunk, he got into a fight with local thugs along the way. A fight broke out, and he was severely beaten, requiring urgent blood transfusions. And that's when we found out that neither I nor my wife could be donors. Our blood types and phenotypes are completely different. In the end, we found a donor, fought for Tom's life until the end, but he never recovered. He died a week later in the ICU. We grieved deeply, even though he wasn't biologically related to us, but we raised him, loved him, invested our souls. Then we decided to conduct our own investigation. We hired a private detective. We couldn't rest knowing that our son was out there, our own flesh and blood, and we knew nothing about him. And the detective uncovered the truth. Found out the surname, coordinates of the second woman who gave birth. And slowly but surely, he unearthed everything about Marcus's fate. And then we stumbled upon your advertisement online asking for help. And we immediately decided to come. Tell us how much is needed. I'll pay it right away. I'll spare no expense for my biological son." Lindsay hesitantly named the astronomical sum, expecting that Marcus's father probably wouldn't be able to pay it all at once. But to her surprise, the man transferred the funds immediately. The woman exclaimed joyfully, "Thank you so much, you don't even know how much you've helped. I went to the bank today, thinking of taking out a loan, but I was denied. Mitch and I were sitting here, feeling down. We didn't know what to do. Tomorrow, I need to find out how Marcus is doing. They should have operated on him by now. But I don't know what to do about work and Mitch. I already take time off so often, they'll fire me soon. I'll end up with nothing. Monica exclaimed, "Don't worry, Lindsay. We'll go to our son ourselves. We'll stay with him. Get to know him better. You have to start somewhere. And you better take care of Mitch. Why drag the boy through all this? Treatment and rehabilitation take time. I admire you, honestly. To empathize with someone else's misfortune and help a completely unknown family like this is highly commendable. You're amazing." Lindsay said, "They're not strangers to me anymore. Mitch has become like a son to me, you know? He's a wonderful boy, and talented too. He has excellent drawing skills. I want to enroll him in art school. Such talent shouldn't go to waste. And Marcus. I do like him, honestly, but... Chloe. Anyway, it's all complicated and confusing, but I'm glad you found a son. I think Marcus will be happy too." Up until now, Mitch had just been silent, blinking his eyes and not intervening in the adults' conversation, only listening attentively, and then he couldn't resist and asked, "Aunt Lindsay, I didn't understand. Are they my grandparents? Is that right?" The woman winked at him. "Absolutely, you're right. You're lucky, my joy." The boy jumped up. "Awesome. And indeed, Grandpa really looks like Dad. Or Dad looks like him. I noticed it right away when they came in. Look, even the mole on the neck is the same. Wow, that's something." The grandfather and grandmother hugged their grandson, warmly bid farewell, and began to make their way to their son, to the Capitol Clinic. They still couldn't believe that just recently they had buried their adoptive son and were completely lonely and depressed, and now today they found their biological son and grandson all at once. On the way, Monica was very worried, even taking her heart drops. She kept thinking about how Marcus would take it all, whether he would push them away. After all, he was raised in a completely different family, and those people were his family. Would he be able to love them? How did the surgery go? Would the son be able to walk? But as soon as the relatives met, looked at each other, that warmth and emotional connection immediately arose between them, which Marcus also didn't feel from his parents all his childhood. And why? He himself didn't understand. They hugged for a long time, cried, and couldn't believe that after so many years they managed to find each other. The operation was complicated, it lasted many hours, but Smith did the impossible. Gradually, Marcus began to feel his legs. When he could move his fingers, and then his foot, he was as happy as a child. The rehabilitation was lengthy, lasting 2 months, but in the end, Marcus could walk properly, leaning on a cane. All this time, the parents were there, supporting, encouraging, instilling confidence that everything would be fine. Mitch lived with Lindsay all this time, went to regular school, also attended art school, and enjoyed drawing. Somehow unnoticed, he started calling Lindsay Mom from time to time. She melted and didn't scold the boy. It was deeply touching for her when he called her that. The woman dressed the boy, tidied him up, bought him a fashionable backpack and new school supplies. All for drawing. They got along excellently and didn't quarrel. But the boy really missed his dad. Although they talked on the phone every day. Now the woman ran home from work as if on wings. She called Mitch 100 times when he was home alone. She worried whether he had eaten, whether he was afraid. Finally, she was able to feel like a mother. It turns out, it's so wonderful to take care of a child. There was no more loneliness and emptiness in her soul. But Lindsay anxiously waited for what would happen when Marcus returned. What if he took Mitch and continued to live with that unbearable Chloe? The woman realized that she couldn't live without the boy anymore. She would just die, that's all. After a long rehabilitation, Marcus finally returned home. During this time, he had become very close to his parents. He had a difficult conversation ahead and a farewell to Chloe. It was inevitable. After all, she only called a couple of times during this time. She asked about his health, and not once did she mention where Mitch was now. She didn't care at all. Marcus didn't intend to continue living under the same roof with such a person, especially since his son was categorically against it. He quietly entered the apartment, opened the door with his own key, and was amazed at the mess the pseudo-housewife had made here. Things were scattered everywhere, the floor hadn't been cleaned for a long time, and there was a sea of dirty dishes piled up in the sink in the kitchen. Chloe didn't expect to see Marcus, so she was sitting with a cigarette and a glass of wine in the armchair, chatting with someone on the phone. She was laughing madly. "Oh, Marcus, you're home already? What a surprise. I'm so glad." The man smirked bitterly. "Yes, the fool is back home now. And you better hurry up and get out of my apartment to your little doll. He misses you, you know. You're so deceitful, Chloe. Mitch saw through you the first time, and I, like a fool, believed in love." Chloe resisted to the very end, trying to plead, causing scenes, but Marcus was relentless. He simply couldn't bear to see this messy, two-faced woman anymore and wondered at himself. How could he have loved her once? Compared to her, Lindsay was simply an angel. The next day, he took on the task of cleaning the apartment and preparing a celebratory dinner. Finally, everything was sparkling and shining, and Marcus went to get his son and Lindsay. The little one, seeing his father at the door, squealed with joy and threw himself into his arms. He clung to him, hugged tightly, and whispered, "Dad, I missed you. You're walking on your own. That's awesome." Marcus couldn't hold back tears either and replied, "I missed you too, son. Look how you've grown, you're so big and grown up now. Let's go home. I've prepared dinner." Then Marcus approached Lindsay and, looking into her eyes intently, sincerely said, "Lindsay, dear, thank you so much for our son. For everything you've done for our family. You're like a guardian angel to me. It was you who reached out to help me when I didn't want to live at all, and literally pulled me out of the abyss. Let's go to my place. I've invited my parents for dinner." The woman was undoubtedly pleased with such warm words. But she hesitated. "And Chloe? To be honest, I really don't want to see her. So I think I'll decline." Mitch also piped up. "If Chloe is at home, I'm not going. She's mean." Marcus slapped his forehead and replied, "Oh, what a fool, completely forgot to mention. Chloe and I broke up, I kicked her out. Imagine, I come home yesterday, and she's on the phone talking about how great it is without me and Mitch. And she mentioned some plan that didn't work out. But I never really understood what was going on. And she was clearly talking to some guy. And when she saw me, she started twisting like a snake, trying to justify herself. And I looked at her and wondered how and why I could have ever loved her. So I kicked her out of the apartment." Mitch jumped for joy and shouted, "Hooray! That witch is gone. Just like in a fairy tale. Mom, Lindsay, come with us, please. I don't want to part with you. We still have the 3 times table to go over today." "I remember." Lindsay agreed. She herself couldn't bear to part with Mitch. She had become so attached to him that she really considered him her son. The evening went great. Marcus's parents hit it off with their grandson right away. They brought him many gifts, bought him a cool phone. The boy was simply ecstatic. Lindsay helped Marcus set the table before his parents arrived. Together they prepared a couple of salads, and the turkey that the man baked in the oven turned out very tasty. Then they all drank tea with a huge cake that the parents had bought. At the table, Marcus suddenly said, "You know, I can't stop thinking about the fact that Chloe let slip about some plan on the phone. I want to consult a lawyer and try to sue the construction company where I worked for compensation. Since the tragedy, sitting in a wheelchair, I've been thinking, how could it have happened that the safety cable snapped? There's something fishy about it. You see, over the years of working at heights, I've developed a habit of always checking the safety equipment before climbing to a great height. And on that fateful day, I checked everything too. I could swear on my life that everything was in order. But it failed me. I want to know the truth, why it happened like that. It's important to me. Do you support me?" Lindsay hesitated. "But is it necessary? It's all behind us, Marcus. You've recovered. Why dredge up those terrible events again? Maybe it's best to forget everything and move on." But his father waved his hands. "And I support my son. We always need to seek the truth. If my wife and I hadn't delved into the truth, we would have spent our lives with doubts in our hearts and never would have found Marcus and our grandson. You're right, son. There's a lot of strange things about your tragedy. We need to find out everything." When the parents went home, the happy Mitch went to sleep in his own bed. Lindsay helped Marcus wash the dishes and clean up. She also started getting ready to go home. "Okay, Marcus, I guess it's time for me to go too. I'll leave you alone. You probably want to spend time with your son." Marcus suddenly hugged her tightly. "Don't go. Stay with us forever. I can't imagine life without you anymore, and neither can Mitch. He started calling you Mom, you know. Can you understand? And be my wife. Don't worry, I'll find a job. I can't promise mountains of gold, but I'll take care of you and our son. I'll cherish you both, like the most precious things I have." These were the cherished words Lindsay had longed to hear. Marcus and Mitch had already taken up residence in her heart, and she couldn't imagine life without them. The woman replied, "Yes, I agree." They never parted again and began to live in Marcus's apartment. Lindsay rented out her own apartment to a friend from the cafe. The woman had just divorced her husband. Marcus got a job as a real estate agent. He successfully rented and sold apartments to people without deception. After all, he knew all the pitfalls of new construction projects. Lindsay finally took the risk and left the hated cafe where she had endured her boss's bullying for so many years. Marcus's parents helped her get a job as a manager in a large company through acquaintances. At first, Lindsay was very worried, bustling around, thinking she wouldn't cope, but gradually she got used to it, and everything started working out. The schedule was excellent, an 8-hour workday, and the director was a good, calm person, not a tyrant. Finally, the woman stopped being horribly tired. Now she had enough time to spend with her son. Mitch was doing excellently and enjoying school, especially the art classes. He showed great promise. His works took top places in various competitions. Everyone without exception noted that the boy was very talented. Lindsay noticed that there was no longer any witchcraft or negativity in his works. They were paintings of absolute happiness. Bright phoenixes of unseen beauty, wonderful landscapes, and very often dogs appeared, specifically dogs. The sensitive woman realized that Mitch dreamed of a pet, but as always, he didn't dare to talk about it. In the evening, she approached her husband to talk. "Marcus, listen, Mitch's birthday is in a week. I'll organize everything. He wanted to invite his friends from the studio over. Let's give him a puppy. I know he's been dreaming of one for a long time." Marcus asked in surprise, "Do you think so? But he never mentioned wanting a dog." "If that's the case, then I don't mind. Just not too big, okay?" Lindsay laughed. "Oh, Daddy, just take a look at his album. Here's a sad stray puppy, here's a German shepherd, and the boy is walking her with a leash. And what a funny dachshund. And again, the boy is throwing a stick for her." Children project their worries and dreams onto paper. Marcus hugged his wife and whispered, "You really know and understand Mitch well. Like a real mother. Thank you. A dog is just a dog. I don't mind." So, the long-awaited holiday came. From the early morning, the parents congratulated Mitch, and Lindsay said, "Our gift, Mitch, will be unusual. We want to go with you to the shelter for abandoned animals, and you can choose a pet for yourself. You've been dreaming of a dog, right? We could have bought you a puppy, but giving a home and love to an abandoned pet is much more pleasant and noble, isn't it?" The boy's eyes sparkled with happiness. He rushed to hug Lindsay and his father and thanked them. "Wow! How did you guess? I really wanted a dog, but I was afraid to say it. I thought you would be against it. Can we go right now?" They bought a bag of food for other abandoned animals and went to the shelter. With pain and sympathy in his eyes, Mitch walked from one enclosure to another, looking at the animals. The shelter worker told him sad stories of how they ended up here. In the farthest enclosure, a little dog lay sadly. The food and water next to her were untouched, and there was an indescribable pain in her eyes. The worker said, "This is Lima. She was born different from the others, and she was rejected, simply thrown away. But she's not a street dog. She misses people and a warm home. She can't get over the betrayal of her former owners. She doesn't respond at all. Hardly eats. It's very sad. She's unlikely to survive in the enclosure." Mitch suddenly asked, "Can I go to her? I want to pet her, please." They opened the enclosure for him, and the boy cautiously approached and squatted next to the little dog. He whispered something to her for a long time and quietly, as if she were a person, and then gently stroked and scratched her behind the ear. It was incredible, but suddenly Lima stood up, wagged her tail, and licked his hand, then his cheek. Lindsay and Marcus understood. Lima would now live with them. On the way, they stopped by a pet store and bought everything they needed. Food, a bed, a leash, flea products, shampoo, a toy ball, and much more. The first thing they did was bathe the dog. She wasn't afraid of water at all. On the contrary, it was evident that she had often been bathed before, and she truly enjoyed the process. Lima turned out to be a snow-white, very cute dog. Kind and affectionate. She knew her business, barked at strangers, and adored her own. Now the whole family enjoyed going to the park and walking with Lima. Mitch ran around with her like crazy and was absolutely happy. Meanwhile, an investigation was conducted in the construction company. A criminal case was opened regarding Marcus's tragedy at the lawyer's instigation. Outrageous facts emerged. It turned out that the safety belts had been deliberately cut. Marcus's partner, Arnold, who was in cahoots with Chloe, had done it. These scoundrels had been lovers for a long time and had devised a cunning plan to kill Marcus in this way, float Mitch into a children's home, and live in the man's apartment happily ever after. But things didn't go as planned. Marcus survived, and now Chloe decided not to do anything and not to treat the man, sending him off to a care home for the disabled. But even there, fate intervened, thanks to Lindsay, and thwarted her sinister plans. But now that the whole truth had come to light, Chloe and Arnold faced a decent sentence for attempting to murder a person. Finally, the scoundrels would get what they deserved. Marcus was in shock. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that he had lived with such a snake for so many years. It was unbelievable to maim the life of a close person. Wanting his death just for housing. Nothing sacred. Marcus often thought that Lindsay was nothing less than a godsend. At precisely the moment when he had completely lost hope and wanted to end it all, she appeared. One wanted to kill, the other saved a stranger, giving her all. Such different souls. A year passed. Life went on as usual. The family lived quietly, happily, peacefully. But recently, Lindsay hadn't been feeling well. She became nervous, distracted. Suddenly, she felt like crying for no reason. She lost her appetite. And at night, the woman would retreat to a separate bedroom and sit there, sad and tearful. Marcus became seriously concerned. He had never seen Lindsay like this. She had always been lively and cheerful, but now she seemed darker than a storm cloud, with tears almost constantly welling up in her eyes. The atmosphere in the family reached a boiling point. Marcus couldn't take it anymore. "Lindsay, what's going on? Did I offend you somehow? If so, tell me. Let's talk about it. Have you fallen out of love with me and Mitch? Why do you seem so unlike yourself? Let's do something about it. Let's go to the doctor tomorrow. I can't go on like this anymore." The woman suddenly burst into tears. "I don't know. I don't understand anything myself. I just feel bad, you know? And I can't understand why. I don't feel like eating. I feel nauseous. I'm all over the place. Silly thoughts keep popping into my head. What if it's an illness? Who knows? I can't think about anything. I don't want anything, and it's as if I have no strength." The next day, Marcus took a day off from work and took his wife to the clinic. The woman underwent a full examination and all the necessary tests. When it came to the gynecologist, she surprised the whole family. After the examination, a stern, elderly woman in glasses casually made notes in the chart and said aloud, "Pregnancy, about 13 weeks. Your condition is quite understandable. Hormones are adjusting. I'll prescribe vitamins and sedatives for you. Finish the course, and everything will be fine. Your age is excellent, so register with us. We'll keep an eye on you. So far, I don't see any deviations. All the best to you." Lindsay sat there, mouth agape, unable to utter a word. She couldn't wrap her head around the doctor's statement. "I'm pregnant. I'm going to be a mom. But is it really true? I hadn't even hoped for such happiness. My ex-husband had convinced me that I was childless, and I believed him. And Marcus was telling her something." He joyfully waved his hands, shaking her shoulders. Kissed her hands. The man was happy that they would have a child together with Lindsay. But how do I tell Mitch about this? Won't he be jealous? Won't he be upset? Lindsay thought for a long time about how to tell him and decided to try drawing it. In the evening, she sat down next to him at the table and asked the boy, "Mitch, let's draw something that everyone knows but is afraid to say. Okay? Just be honest." The son gladly agreed. He loved to draw. Lindsay did her best to depict herself, her husband, her son, the dog, and a stroller with a baby. And the son drew a school notebook and a red pen marking a 2, equivalent to a D or F grade in some grading systems. They exchanged drawings. Lindsay started the conversation. "Mitch, are you upset about getting a bad grade at school? Are you afraid to tell your dad and me?" The boy nodded. "Well, I'm usually an A student, but this time, I don't know what came over me. I made so many silly mistakes on the test. The teacher scolded me, threatened that I wouldn't get an A this quarter. So, I'm worried that I disappointed you both." Lindsay tenderly reassured the boy. "You worried for nothing. I won't scold you. And neither will Dad. It's nothing to be afraid of. Everyone has bad days. I'm sure you'll redo the test and fix the grade. But even if you don't get an A this quarter, is that the most important thing in life? Don't worry." The boy brightened up, feeling relieved. He started to look at Lindsay's drawing with interest. Then he laughed. "Mom, you're like kids. I already figured out that a little brother or sister will be born soon. I'm not deaf, and I'm not too little anymore. I won't be jealous. On the contrary, I'll try to help with everything. I hope he or she won't be too naughty." Lindsay laughed and kissed her son on the forehead. "You're such a grown-up son to us. And your dad and I keep thinking of you as a little kid. Thank goodness you understood everything correctly. I feel so relieved now. Now we need to make Grandpa and Grandma happy that they'll have more work soon. They'll have someone to look after." In the evening, peace returned to the family. Lindsay snuggled affectionately against her husband and whispered, "You and Mitch have given me real happiness. It's so wonderful that we are now one big, happy family." Marcus sleepily hugged his beloved and held her close. "No, it's you, my happiness, the meaning of life. I'll never give it away to anyone, ever."